recordings, so feel free to download and to watch also the videos. I see that Claudio already started the recording, so even the lesson of today will be recorded. Do you have any question about the previous lessons? Maybe in the meanwhile you watch the video. So if you have any question now about the previous lessons. If not, as you already know, we will take the question during the break. We are going to have a break at around 11 o'clock, I would say, this morning. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so I hope you can see the slides. Gabriela is telling me something. Wait. Okay, no, it's fine. So can you confirm that you can see the slides, Gabriela? I hope so.
Yes.
Anyway, okay, thank you. So let me start with the timing. Okay, so welcome back to our final meeting on open science. Today, it's a sort of recap lesson because we are going to see how to apply what we learned during the first four modules into your Horizon Europe proposal. So the slides, as I was saying, are available on the same record in Zenodo. I've put all the slides there and all the recordings that kindly Claudio provided. The recordings are also available on the UNITA working space. So today we are at our last lesson, as I was saying. So we are going to see how to apply what we learn about open science and why do we need it, open science tool, open access practices, data management, fair data management plan, to our proposal in Horizon Europe. Because, and this is important, because in Horizon Europe, one of the criteria by which your project proposal is evaluated, so this is a big novelty compared to Horizon 2020, your proposal will be evaluated also on how you adopt and adapt open science practices. And why I say adopt and adapt, we are going to see in a while. Some housekeeping, please mute your microphone because the lesson will be recorded. And if there is some noise, you will spoil for future listeners. There will be a break after the first part. So after, let's say, 1 hour of lesson, and questions will be taken at that time, okay? So at the end of the first part. Of course, if you have any doubt, anything, while I will be speaking, please just write it in the chat and we will read the chat during the break. Just a bit of recap for people who were not with us before. Why are we dealing with open science? Because open science is becoming the new normal. And if you look at the European Open Science Cloud, at the EOSC Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, you will see that one of the objectives of the EOSC is open science practices and skills are rewarded and taught, becoming the new normal. And that's the point. Open science is becoming the new normal. So is it just a mandate? No, it's the new way of doing science, as you can see here. It's a paradigm shift. So it's becoming the new normal. Either you learn how to do open science or you are out of all this process going on at European level. And why do we need open science? Again, just a short recap. Please refer to the previous recordings if you were not with us during the first lessons. Our focus, unfortunately, is still on journal articles, of course, because of research assessment purposes. But I think, and what we saw during our first lesson is that the COVID-19 showed that only sharing data and results as early as possible, science can progress. So we can't wait for 2 or 3 years for an article to be accepted on a journal. Problem is that we are paying every year $10 billion in subscriptions to lock up the content which we produced by public money and give publishers for free. So you basically produce research by public money, then you publish on a journal, and then we have to rebuy the content, spending 10 billion every year of public money to subscribe to journal. So this is a very important message. Today, reading is not for free. If you divide the total amount that we spend for subscription by the number of published articles, every article costs between $3,800 to $5,000. And I'm not discussing open access here. I'm not discussing article processing charge. I'm simply dividing the amount we pay for subscriptions by the number of published articles. So today reading is not for free, and that's to prevent a common misunderstanding of researchers. So today reading is for free, why should I pay to publish? Simple thing is, today reading is not for free. We pay a huge amount of money. And in this situation, we have 70% of studies which are not reproducible. So basically they are not science. And this is more scaring. We have 43% of retractions for fraud, with a direct correlation between the number of retraction and the journal impact factor, meaning that the highest the journal impact factor, the highest the number of retractions. So the journal impact factor is not at all a seal of quality, a guarantee of quality. Let's say prestigious journal are not publishing good science. And why is that? Because if current research criteria ask you to do anything to publish in a high impact factor journal, you do literally anything, including falsifying or fabricating data. And that's because evaluation became an obsession and people game the system at every level. Gaming the Metrics is a title of a book edited by Mario Biagioli and Alexandra Lippmann, which I really suggest you to read. But, and there is a big but, because whenever I give a lesson on open science, the normal reaction is, oh yes, very nice, oh yes, everything is good, but we are still evaluated on the highest impact factor. That's no longer true, because last year, COERA was launched by the European Commission, is the Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment. It's a coalition of more than 400 institutions. The University of Turin signed it. I hope also other universities within UNITA will sign the coalition. They are working to change the research assessment criteria, rewarding collaboration, no longer using not only impact factor, but also journal ranking, because it's the same logic. COERA is very, let's say, operational, meaning that you have 1 year after you sign the agreement, you have 1 year to produce a roadmap, meaning to show the Commission how you're going to change your assessment, your research assessment. And in 5 years, you have to give the first result, okay? So it's very practical, and I hope that all the institutions which signed the agreement are aware of this. So research assessment is changing right now. Bear this in mind whilst I will be talking. For this reason, why, so just because the current scholarly communication doesn't work, okay? It's a spoiled system, is a rotten system, is a broken system, so we need more transparency for a sounder, more effective and inclusive scientific process, because bear in mind that the first benefit is for science in itself, because if all the process is transparent and it's accountable, science is sounder, okay? Please bear in mind also that open science is an umbrella term. So basically it means opening every step as early as possible. As you can see, open access is just one of the components, as open fair data, open notebook, citizen science, open educational resources. And as you can see, the focus is on the entire process, not only on the final output, which is the article. We discussed all these elements, all these components, and all the, let's say, the principles of open access during our first module. Please refer to the recordings. This is the rainbow of open science created by Bianca Kramer and Jerome Bosman at the University of Utrecht. Basically, what you have to do in Horizon Europe is to adapt all these practices, or I would say the more the better, to your research, because you will be evaluated also on that. Why I say adopt and adapt? Because if you simply copy something that another project put in the Horizon Europe proposal, it will make no good for you. Okay, it will be, I would say, a negative effect on your. It would. Sorry, I would rephrase. It would negatively affect the evaluation of your proposal, because you need to be aware on which practices are more suitable, more fitting to your kind of research, to your kind of data, and so on. If not, the risk is, as it happened to a colleague from Poland, that a research team who simply copy-paste a data management plan, but that's true and that's the same for any open science practice, they were dealing with an experiment involving mice, okay? But as they copy the data management plan, they put in the data management plan that the subject of the experiment will sign the consent form, okay? So I imagine this little mouse signing the consent form, because simply they copy-paste a data management plan from another research team, of course, involving humans, and that's why they needed the consent form. So please don't copy. It will negatively affect the evaluation of your proposal. You need to adapt the more open science practices to your project, just because open science is a method, okay? Is a new way of doing science. So the more your entire workflow is open, the better, okay? That's the point here. Is it just a mandate? Is it just an administrative burden? No, it's not, of course. I would say if you see it just a mandate, if you see it just the unplanned administrative burden, shame on you. I mean, it's a pity for you, because you lose the better part of open science, which is really I would say, enlightening. Okay, it's another way of doing research, much more transparent, much more collaborative. It's really better. Okay, so it's not just a mandate, and even if it's just a mandate, it's because open data save lives, as you can see, and as we discussed during our first module. This is the lesson we learned from COVID. Okay, open data save lives. Okay, and that's it. Full stop. Period. Okay. And if you look at the values and the principles of open science, which is what is at stake here, okay? During our first module, we focused mostly on the why we need open science and on the benefit of open science, not on the how. How is simply a rule. It's plenty of material out there by which you can learn how to do open science. My point here is to learn why we need it. And so to be convinced that it's a benefit in the first place for your research workflow, because it will be more streamlined, more sound, more transparent, more scientific, because more reproducible. And yeah, that's it, basically. So as John Tennant reminded us, open science is just science done right. And please refer to the first 4 lessons to see the funny side. Today we are going to see only the mandate, which is the boring part about open science, so please refer to the previous lessons. Today we learn everything about open science in Horizon Europe, because you will be evaluated also on open science practices. That's really important, and that's the novelty compared to Horizon 2020. There is also another important distinction between recommended practices and mandatory ones. And take-home messages. First of all, mandated open science in Horizon Europe does not mean publishing in an open access journal. I want to be clear. It does not mean that you have to publish in an open access journal. We will see that you will have 3 options. And second, you have to responsibly manage your data according to the FAIR principles. So we dealt with FAIR principles with data management in lesson 3 and 4. So please refer to the corresponding video recordings. If you look at Horizon Europe strategic plan, you will read why the Commission chose to go open. As you can read here, open science is becoming the modus operandi for carrying out research and innovation by sharing knowledge, data, and tool as early as possible. This is a very important message. If you are doing research with a third party, maybe a commercial party, okay, your as early as possible will be after your commercial product is done, okay? If you are not, you can share it as early as possible, meaning today, or meaning as soon as your research is finished. Then, in open collaboration with all the relevant knowledge actors and society. We discussed it a lot. According to the UNESCO recommendation, science should be a dialogue, okay? A dialogue with society. So it's not simply a gentle dissemination from academia outside academia. No, it's a dialogue. So it's a two-way conversation with the society. And that's why all the co-creation actions, all the citizen science features are highly and highly positively evaluated in Horizon Europe, okay? And as you can read here, the principle is as open as possible, as close as necessary. Just to get rid of all the doubt, or no, I can't share my data because of privacy issue, oh no, I can't share my data because there is no but, and there is no I can't, because you have to put your data in the open. So it's open by default. You just have to, you can keep the data closed only if you have valid reason to do so. okay? So it's completely the opposite of what's going on now, because now everything is closed and only some brave researchers, a growing number, I would say, of researchers open the data, open every step of the research. It should be the reverse. So everything should be open. You should keep it closed only when it's needed. And during our third lesson, we made 2 examples of data that clearly should be kept closed, okay? And why is that? Because now we have the EOSC, okay? We have the European Open Science Cloud. If you don't go open, if you don't make your data fair by design, the risk is to be excluded from this huge process ongoing in Europe. So basically, all the European research will be carried out within the EOSC, the European Open Science Cloud, which of course we discussed it. It's not a cloud in a computer science meaning. It's a cloud just to convey this idea of seamlessness. So it's a virtual environment in which researchers, innovators, small and medium enterprises, other researchers, citizens meet and share the data and build new knowledge. So that's the let's say just to setting the scene, okay, what's going on in Europe and the reasons why the European Commission went for this strong open option within Horizon Europe. It was not out of the blue. As you can see, they started in FP7 in 2018, with a pilot on open access. Then in Horizon 2020, you have a mandate on open access to text and a pilot on data, which became a mandate in 2017. And then in Horizon Europe in 2021, you have a mandate for the publications, you have a mandate for fair data, and you have open science in the evaluation of the proposal, which is really, really the novelty compared to Horizon 2020. Again, it's just an administrative burden. It's just because bad guys in Brussels didn't know what to do, so they came up with, out of the blue, with this idea of obliging you to go open. No, it's to make science fit for the 21st century. If you think of it, we are in the era of the internet, in which we can share everything at once and immediately. And we are paying commercial publishers 10 billion simply to have a PDF online. Come on, it's 2023. We can have much more than a PDF online, okay? So open science basically makes science fit for the 21st century. And this is an important message in this paper. There is a higher risk. There is a value and risk of being a first mover. There is a higher risk of being a follower. Because, of course, the first movers will also get all the benefits of going open, which one for all is having more citations, is having more visibility, is creating more collaboration, more opportunities for collaboration. So if you want, let's say, an overview of the policies toward openness, please refer to this paper written by Jean-Claude Burgelman, who used to be the head of the unit Open Science at the Commission. There are also official documents bringing us towards open science. First of all, the Council on Competitiveness in 2016, seeing open access by default in 2020, so we are already late. Then we had the recommendation in 2018, asking and calling for national policies for texts and data, for fair data, not only at national level, but also at research performing organization level. I can say at the University of Turin, we had one of the first policies on text in 2013, then it's completely unattended, and we don't have still a policy on data. Then we have the the former Public Sector Information Directive, which was revised in 2019, and now it's called the Open Data Directive. Why this is important? Because research data were included as public sector information, so they must be open, okay? It's a legal obligation. In Italy, we have this, of course, as every directive should be, I don't know the term in English, in it, received by the national legislation. So it's a mandate by law that your data must be open, or always according to the principle as open as possible, as close as necessary. If you have valid reasons to keep them close, you can keep them close, but the default should be to open, okay? And why is that? Because I forgot to tell you till now, because all our research is produced by public money. So that's the basic principle. It's public money, it must be publicly available, and that's it. Then we have also the European Strategy for Data, the communication in 2020, dealing with fair data with the EOSC. We have the Council conclusions in December 2021 on the ERA, on the governance of the European research area, asking for a reform of research assessment. As we said at the beginning, okay, everything is fine, but as long as you are evaluated only on the highest impact factor journal, it's no good for science and for science in itself, because we saw all the perverse effect that high impact factor journals brought to science. And that's why in June last year, in 2022, we also had the Council conclusions on research assessment, stating that we need a different research assessment, no longer using journal rankings, no longer using only quantitative indicators, rewarding openness, rewarding collaboration, and so on. So these are the legal basis of open science and the legal basis of Horizon Europe. And if you look at the first three actions of the new European Research Area Policy Agenda, they are all related to open science. The first one is about open science in itself and the European Open Science Cloud. The second one is about a copyright supporting openness and sharing. And the third one is precisely the reform of the research assessment system. Italy endorsed all the three actions. Please check if your country did the same, but I'm sure they did. Coming to Horizon Europe, this was only, again, I don't like just to tell you what you have to do, okay? Just the rules. It's not in my, okay, it's not my cup of tea. Let's put it this way. I prefer to know why I have to do something. Now we have to deal also with the rules. So what's new in Horizon Europe compared to Horizon 2020? First of all, open science is one of the criteria to evaluate your proposal. So in Horizon 2020, it was mandatory once the project was funded, okay? Now it's, let's say, it's preliminary, okay? So in order to be funded, you need to demonstrate how you are going to adapt and adopt open science practices. And rightly so, because open science is a method, is a new way of doing research. And that's why it was put in the methodology part of the proposal, okay? So under the methodology excellence part of your proposal, you have to put all you are going to do with open science practices. Then you will have to show the skills in the consortium capacity. So again, it's part B, point 3. In the organization's 5 achievements in part A, so you are required to show the commission that you already went open. And then you also have something about open science in the maximization of the impact of your research. What's the same is open science in dissemination, but again, with new rules. I would say that the Commission didn't make things simple because they divided basically all the relevant information about open science in 4 different documents. First of all, of course, the General Model Grant Agreement, Article 6.2 C3. It's the relevant point in which you will see that every expenses to manage your data and to manage your research in an open way are eligible for reimbursement, okay? Then the relevant document is Article 17 on communication, dissemination, and visibility of your research, and the Annex 5 to Article 7, which is entirely about open science. As you can see here, you have 3 pages on open science. And here you have the mandatory open science practices. Then, in the annotated model grant agreement, you will have more explanation on the same article that we saw there. And in Annex 5, you will find the definition of trusted repository. We will see in the slides. Then you have the standard application form in which you have open science in part A, when you have the list of achievements, sorry, it's not publications, the list of achievements. In part B, in the excellence methodology part of your proposal, you will have to show open science practices and data management practices. Again, in part B, point 2, you have to show how you are going to maximize impact. And in part B, 3.2, in the consortium capacity, you have to show your skills as a partner, your skills in openness. And that's, I would say, the most relevant document on a practical point of view. The program guide, because you have more than 25 pages on open science, okay? Because you have something about patents, you have something about dissemination, you have open science, let's say, serving suggestions, and here you have the right retention clause. We will see that the right retention clause is one of the biggest novelties, in Horizon Europe, and it's in the program guide. What you have to learn about open science in Horizon Europe is that you have mandatory practices and recommended practices. So mandatory practices are the one detailed, and they are detailed, okay? And there is no way out. Open access to publications, which does not mean publishing in an open access journal, please, okay? So we will see that you have 3 options. Open access to FAIR data, research outputs management according to the FAIR principles, and reproducibility practices, okay? So basically you have 4 mandatory practices. Some calls, some specific calls in some specific programs might require additional practices, okay? But they will be detailed in the call. Then you have the recommended practices, which basically are all the ones that we saw in the rainbow of open science practices, like open peer review, pre-registration of your experiments, citizen science experiments, I don't know, poster sharing, or software and code sharing, basically sharing every step of your research as early and open as possible, okay? So these are recommended, so they are not mandatory, but, and it's a big but again, they are recommended, but your proposal will be evaluated on that, okay? So the more open science practices are suitable and you include in your project proposal, the better your project proposal will be evaluated. I hope it is clear. This is another important point, because at the beginning, even from the first webinar from the Commission, it was not clear. In the proposal, you need to address both how you will be compliant to the mandatory practices and how you will adopt the recommended practices. I underline again, adopt. Please don't copy paste, because I hear with my, I heard with my ears, a prominent professor in our university telling me, oh yes, you have to write this one page on open science. Yes, you simply draft it and everyone is going to copy paste it. Okay, which is precisely what you have not to do. Okay, because you have to adapt the open science practices to your own kind of data, your own kind of research. Okay. And you need to address both in this one page in the proposal, okay? How you will be compliant to the mandatory policies, for instance, where are you going to publish, okay? So which one of the three options are you going to go? How are you going to manage your FAIR data, and so on? And the recommended practices. Meaning, are you pre-registering your experiment? Are you going for open peer review? Are you going for, I don't know, share your code? Are you going to share your bibliographies? So whatever you are going to do, you have to address in the proposal page, okay? This is a guide. I forgot to tell you that the slides are available with a Creative Commons license. So feel free to reuse them, provided that you quote me as the author. The same is true for all the background photos, because they are all mine. And in the slides, you will find the link to the source. So here you will find the link to the Zenodo record, in which you will find this sort of infographic about open science practices in Horizon Europe. Okay. As you can see, you have recommended practices and you have mandatory practices, okay? The richer the recommended practices suitable for your research, the better, okay? But you also have mandatory practices, meaning open access to text, fair data management plan, and reproducibility practices, okay? As you can see here, you are evaluated on the recommended practices and the mandatory ones, okay? So in the methodology of your proposal, I say it again, you need to address both, how you will comply with mandatory practices, how you will adopt recommended practices. This is another way of seeing mandatory and recommended practices. This slide comes from Victoria Tsukala, who works at the European Commission. As you can see here, it seems to be, it's just put in another way, but anyway, we will discuss research, output management, and open access to data together, okay? So it can look like we have 3 mandatory practices, but actually they are 4, simply we discuss them together. This is another infographic coming from the University of Ghent, in which you see where open science comes to the scene in your proposal, in part A, in part B, what we said before, okay? So how do I address open science in my proposal is again another very practical guide, very practical tool. Let's go in depth, and then at 11 o'clock we are going to have the break. So what is open science and why we have open science in Horizon Europe? This is the program guide. Open science is an approach based on open cooperative work and systematic sharing. This is very important, systematic sharing. So it's another way of doing research. As we discussed during our second module, your research should be open by design, okay? It's not just that you do research as usual, so it's business as usual, and then in the end you share. No, it's that your research should be open by design, okay? So it's based on open cooperative work and systematic sharing of knowledge and tools as early and widely as possible in the process, okay? Again, another keyword which is process. It's not just the final output, it's the entire process that should be open as early and openly as possible, okay? Horizon Europe, as you can see here, moves beyond open access to open science, okay? Open access is just one of the components of open science. In Horizon 2020, we were still focused on open access in a very bad way, by the way, because it was hybrid open access. It was really the contrary of open access. Anyway, Horizon Europe moves beyond open access to open science. And in Horizon Europe, open science practices are considered in the evaluation of proposal under excellence and under the quality and efficiency of implementation, okay? Recommended open science practices are incentivized through their evaluation at the proposal stage. Proposers should be aware of both mandatory and recommended practices and integrate them into their proposal. I hope it's clear. So in the proposal, you have to address both. You have to embed both mandatory and recommended practices in the excellence part of the proposal. And you will be evaluated on that. In the excellence methodology part of your proposal, you have to provide concrete information on how you plan to comply with the mandatory open science practices. Failure to address this will result in a lower evaluation score. I hope it is clear. You also have to put there a clear explanation on how you will adopt recommended, and I would say adapt, recommended practices as appropriate for their project will result in a higher evaluation score. It's clear? In the proposal, you also have to put in, I would say, not only a justification, but a solid justification, a valid reason if you reckon that none of the open science practices, mandatory or recommended, apply to your project, okay? So you have to explain how you will comply with the mandatory, how you will adopt and adapt recommended practices, and explain, or better justify, if you reckon that no open science practice is suitable for your proposal, okay? I hope, again, it is clear. So coming to mandatory practices. First of all, publications, and then after publications, we are going to have the break and the questions. Mandatory practices, publications. Here is the wording of the grant agreement. Never forget, please, that it's an agreement. So you signed the agreement with the Commission, so you commit your project to be compliant with what you signed. And you are signing that the beneficiaries must, not should, must ensure open access to peer-reviewed scientific publications relating to the results. In particular, they must ensure that at the latest at the time of publication, so no embargo, a machine-readable electronic copy of the published version or the final peer-reviewed manuscript accepted for publication is deposited in a trusted repository for scientific publications. Immediate open access is provided to the deposit publication via the repository under the latest available version of the Creative Commons Attribution International Public License, CC BY. For monograph or other long text formats, the license may exclude commercial uses and derivative works. Okay? Information is given via the repository about any research output or any other tools and instruments needed to validate the conclusions of the scientific publication. This is the reproducibility mandatory, the reproducibility part of the mandate, okay? So let's discuss the wording. First of all, deposit in a trusted repository. Trusted repository is a novelty, and we will see the definition, okay? Then you have to give immediate open access. And we will see that you need to maintain the rights to do so. Then you have to give all the information needed to validate your findings, okay? What's new? Trusted repository and immediate open access. We will see how you can get immediate open access. Then, a preliminary information, open on what? The peer-reviewed version, okay? If you go back to the wording, the published version or the final peer-reviewed manuscript accepted for publication, which is to say that the preprint you deposit on archive, if you are a physic or in any other preprint server, is not enough, okay? They want the accepted version. And just to recall some definition, the preprint is the submitted version, the file you submit to the journal. The author's accepted manuscript is the final revised version without the publisher layout. The version of record is the published version. And normally, I mean, normal life is different from Horizon Europe. If you recall our module on open access, normally there might be embargoes. Embargoes start on the day of online publication. They apply to the allowed version, and to know which is the allowed version, you go to Sherpa Romeo database, which you see here. It applies to the allowed version. So if the allowed version is the author's accepted manuscript with 12 months embargo in normal life, you deposit the accepted manuscript today and it will be visible after 12 months, okay? That's normal life. Why I say normal life? Because in normal life, let's go this way, okay? Let's go to this part before. In normal life, you first publish wherever you want, then you go to Sherpa Romeo, you check the allowed version, and then you deposit, okay? So this was the green road to open access. You first publish wherever you want, and then you deposit the allowed version, okay? In Horizon Europe, it's different. And in Horizon 2020, it was the same. So in Horizon Europe, depositing is always the first step. So you have to deposit first because it's for text mining, it's for preservation. So it's always due, even when you publish in an open access journal. Okay, that's the difference with normal life. It's for preservation and text mining purposes. And then the second step in Horizon Europe is to give immediate access. In Horizon 2020, you still had 6 months or 12 months embargo, if you recall it, depending on whether you are in the STM or in the humanities. Here, access must be immediate, okay? And you have to maintain the rights to do so. And then in normal life is the reverse. So you publish wherever you want and then you deposit, okay? Just to be clear on patents and open access, because it's a common misunderstanding, and it used to be a common misunderstanding even in Horizon 2020. Mandatory open access to publications does not mean that it's a mandate to publish. All the more so because patenting is a preliminary decision. Because if in order to patent something, you must have absolute novelty. So no publication whatsoever, even in Nature, even in subscription journal, okay? So it's not a matter of open access. If you want to patent your research, you must not publish anything, okay? Not in open access, anything at all. The open access mandate means that you have the obligation to disseminate in open access, which is not an obligation to publish. If you want to patent, you patent, and it's perfectly fine. You have the obligation to protect your research if it's suitable for it. If you are not patenting, then you have the obligation to disseminate in open access, meaning that if you plan to publish and not to patent, then your publication must be open, which, and I say it again, does not mean publishing in an open access journal, okay? I hope it is clear. The definition of trusted repository, which is the other novelty, is in the annotated model grant agreement, okay? And trusted repositories are either certified repositories with a core trust seal or this ISO seal, or general purpose repositories or institutional repositories, provided that they have have some characteristics that you see here. So this is the definition of the trusted repository. Then, as you can see here, again, in the wording of the grant agreement you are going to sign when your project is funded, beneficiaries must retain sufficient intellectual property rights to comply with the open access requirements. It means that if you go for the third option, and we are going to discuss them in a while, you have to maintain the sufficient rights to give immediate open access, meaning deposit and giving immediate open access with no embargo. This is very important. It's called also right retention strategy because it's a prior obligation to your funder. When you are funded in Horizon Europe, you sign the agreement. So the first document you sign is the grant agreement with the European Commission. This is your prior obligation. All the publishing agreement that you sign are after you sign the grant agreement, okay? So that's why the right retention strategy is a prior obligation to your funder, okay? And that's an important point to underline with publishers because they are misleading you and they are misguiding you, okay? They are saying, no, but no way, it's not true that it's a prior obligation. You have to sign the copyright transfer agreement and that's it. It's not true. You signed the grant agreement first when the project is funded. That's where the prior obligation comes from, okay? You first sign the agreement and only then you sign the copyright transfer agreement or the publishing agreement to publish your research. That's where the prior obligation comes from. The clause that you have to use if you publish with a traditional publisher is in the program guide, page 49, if I correctly recall it. So whenever you publish with a commercial publisher, we are going to see the three options in the next slides. You have to add this clause. This work was funded by the European Union under the Horizon Europe grant plus the grant number. As set out in the grant agreement, beneficiaries must ensure that at the latest at the time of publication, open access is provided via a trusted repository to the published version or the final peer-reviewed manuscript accepted for publication under the latest available version of the CC BY license. Okay, that's what you have to add to your publishing agreement with the commercial publishers if you go for option 3 that we are going to see immediately now. The right retention strategy comes from Plan S, because Plan S is this plan coming from Coalition S, a coalition of funders. They enacted the right retention strategy before the Commission, okay? And as they experienced a lot of misleading guidance by publishers, they also put together this page with some, I would say, unfair publishers' practices, okay? Like rejecting the submission to a subscription journal for a full open access APC, so paid journal, or encouraging authors to breach the funder's grant condition, which is a grant infringement, okay? So don't trust your publishers on the right retention strategy, and please refer to this Plan S guidance. Last thing about text, you also have to give access to metadata in a fair way with a CC0 license, the grant number, and the acronym to enable OpenAIR, okay? And this is very important for eligibility of expenses, because this is a huge, huge novelty compared to Horizon 2020. Horizon 2020 was wrong, or better. The intention was deposit and then give access within 6 or 12 months. The intention was for publishers to shorten the length of their embargo. The Commission thought that as they are requesting maximum 6 to 12 months, that the publishers shorten their embargo period. What happened actually was that publishers didn't shorten the embargo period. They simply told authors, okay, you have to give immediate access, or within 6 and 12 months, you have to pay for the open choice, which is the hybrid model, which is the father of all the evil, okay? And there is again on Plan S, there is a blog post on why a hybrid model is the father of all the evil in open access. So simply you have to pay. So basically in Horizon 2020, the Commission paid for a lot of hybrid journals, which means to pay twice, because you pay for the subscription and you pay for the single article to become open. So the huge novelty in Horizon Europe, and you must be aware of that, is that no reimbursement is possible for hybrid journals. They will reimburse only open access, native and full open access journals, no hybrid journals. For instance, if you plan to publish in Nature, do you know that Nature asks for an APC for a single article of 11,500 euros, okay? This will not be reimbursed. So be aware that in Horizon Europe, compared to Horizon 2020, hybrid is no longer eligible for reimbursement. So if it's your choice, if you want to pay, it's up to you. But beware, because you will not be reimbursed. Okay, I hope this is clear. Just to recap, open access to text. First step, always deposit in a trusted repository, even when you publish in an open access journal. Give immediate access, maintaining your rights to do so. Provide any element useful to validate and replicate your research. And the metadata should be always open, plus the grant number to enable open air harvesting. Okay. Never forget that you have to detail also the mandatory practices in the proposal, okay? How the project will be compliant to these mandates, okay? 3 ways to be compliant for texts, but as it's 11 o'clock sharp, and I want you to be fresh and relaxed to see the 3 ways to be compliant to the text mandate, which is not publishing in an open access journal. Let's go for the break. So I stop sharing my screen. I hope it's done now. And okay, thank you. I always thank Gabriela, because Gabriela is my supporter. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. There are questions in the chat. No, it's just about the slides. Okay. Okay, so I hope everything is clear. If not, you can open your mic, or you can write in the chat your question. Anyone having any doubts? Okay, so let's go for, I would say, until 11:15. Okay, just to have a coffee and a walk, and come back fresh for the 3 options to go open for text and publications. Bye, see you later. Okay, welcome back. I hope you are there because I don't see anyone, but anyway. So there was a question during the break. How do we identify a hybrid journal? We discussed it during the module on open access, which is the second one. So please refer to module number 2. Basically, hybrid means any journal, any commercial subscription journal, the journal you used to find in a library like Nature, like the New England Journal of Medicine, any subscription journal, offering you an open choice, meaning that the journal remains by subscription. This single article is made open if you pay, okay? So here is when you always pay for open access, but it's not open access, it's hybrid open access, which really is the evil, because the library is paying twice, is paying for the subscription and for the single article. And there is also another trick, another tip, sorry, because it's a trick, but it's another tip to know and to spot an hybrid journal, because usually the article processing fee that you have to pay, it starts from $3,000 on, okay? So $3,000 is the minimum, and we go to the 11,500 of Nature, okay? So that's another difference with native open access journal. I would reverse the question. So how do you identify open access journal, which is using the DOIJ, the Director of Open Access Journal? I put the link in the chat, but basically hybrid is not a model of journal. It's simply that a journal becomes hybrid if it's by subscription and offer an open choice. I hope it was clear. If not, simply ask it again or put something again in the chat. Okay, you understood. Perfect. Okay, so let me share again the screen. There is someone with an open mic, and I remind you that the lesson is recorded, so please switch off your mic. If not, you are going to spoil the recording for future listeners. So you have 3 ways to be compliant. We were discussing mandatory practices. Mandatory practices for publications, okay? And then we are going for data and reproducibility. You have 3 ways to be compliant for publications, which are not publishing in an open access journal. The first one is publishing in ORI, Open Research Europe, which is the platform the European Commission is providing for free. Then second, and here you have no cost and you are immediately compliant with anything we are going to see. Second option, publish in an open access journal and deposit. Third option is publishing in a subscription-based journal, plus retain the rights to deposit and give immediate access, okay? If you go for the first option, publishing in Open Research Europe, there are no costs for you. If you go for an open access journal, and as I was saying, you go to the Director of Open Access Journal, there might be APCs because 31% of open access journals require an APC, but you will be reimbursed, okay? If you publish in a subscription-based journal, then you have to retain the rights to deposit and to give immediate access. If you go for hybrid, you are not reimbursed, okay? So if you go to a subscription-based journal, the publisher told you, okay, you are funded in Horizon Europe, then you have to give immediate access to, so we are giving you the hybrid option, the open option, so you have to pay. Say no, because in hybrid, you are not reimbursed. All the above, because, you know, when we used to present these three options, the normal reaction was, okay, but I can't publish in ORI because ORI, Open Research Europe, the first option, is just a publishing platform. It's not a journal, so it does not count for evaluation. Bear in mind, we just said, and there is I would say, a longer discussion in module 2 or 1, I don't remember, but maybe it was 1, that evaluation criteria are changing because we have COERA now. We have the Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment, so research evaluation is changing right now, okay? First option for open access to publications. Publishing in ORI. ORI is Open Research Europe. It was launched exactly 2 years ago in March 2021. Why is the best option? Because you deposit your paper. You have immediate open access because it's open access, so it's immediately open. You have also the data and all the information needed to validate included because you can put them on the same platform. Basically, whenever you publish in ORI, you already are compliant with the mandatory practices. Plus, it's always for free, so it's always at no cost, and it's not to be included in the budget. You go for open peer review because in ORI they perform open peer review, which is one of the mandatory practices. And you are indexed in Scopus, and they were discussing also with Web of Science. But anyway, you reach also a great impact, okay? So basically, if you publish in ORI, you are already compliant with the mandatory practices, plus you have some recommended practice like open peer review. Second option, you publish in an open access journal. Here you have the referral to the directory of Open Access Journal with the link. You have around 20,000 full open access journals. 31% asking for an APC. So not 100, but 31% asking for an APC. But here the deposit is up to you. So you have to deposit either in your institutional repository or in Zenodo. Immediate open access, yeah, that's fine, because they are open access journal. There might be costs if you want to know how much you can refer to the ESAC Market Watch or to your, if you are used to publish in an open access journal, maybe you already know how much the fee, how much you have to pay, basically how much money you have to pay. Usually they go from 250 to $2,900 per article. In this case, the costs are to be included in your budget. Okay. In Open Research Europe, no, because it was funded via public procurement by the European Commission. So for you, it's for free. Here, you have to put the cost in your budget. So put a mean cost and multiply for the expected number of journal articles you are expected to publish, and put it in the budget, okay? Because if it's not in the initial budget, of course, it can be reimbursed. Eligible costs are for no hybrid journal, as I was saying, and also if you are printing a book, if you are publishing a book, it's just for digital books because open access is supposed to be digital, okay? So no cost for print, okay, is reimbursed. And then third step, you have to give all the data and all the information needed to validate and replicate your result. Again, it's up to you, again, in Zenodo or in a data repository, which you will find in Re3 Data. Again, please refer to the previous lessons for all the tools. And then you are compliant. If you compare this second option with the previous one, so with Open Research Europe, you will see that two steps are up to you, okay? The initial depositing and depositing data and all the information needed to validate, it's up to you. And here there might be costs, okay, which you have to put into the budget. Third option, publish in a traditional subscription-based journal. Again, the deposit is up to you, either in your institutional repository or in Zenodo. Do you have the right to give immediate open access? So you have to ask yourself, can I give immediate open access? You have to check on Sherpa Romeo. Sherpa Romeo is the database listing the copyright policies of more than 2,000 publishers. If the accepted version has this, this icon, you have 12 months embargo, so you can't give immediate open access, which is, I mean, embargo is mostly roughly for any commercial subscription-based journal. So the answer would 99% would be no. So you can't. So you must retain the rights to give immediate access in the archive in which you are depositing your paper, okay? It's a prior obligation to the funder, as we discussed earlier. So you have to put the clause, okay? You have to add the clause that we read before into your agreement with the publisher, okay? Saying to the publisher, I'm funded by the European Union, so I need to provide immediate access to the accepted version, not to the preprint, but to the accepted version. Then again, data and all the information are up to you, and you are compliant. If there are costs, or if the publishers asks for costs because maybe they redirect you to the hybrid version, bear in mind that hybrid is not eligible for reimbursement. It's the, I think, umpteenth time I say it, okay? Here you have in the annotated model grant agreement, here you see the warning box saying that hybrid is not reimbursed, and for books you have only online costs and not print costs reimbursed. Just a reminder here, it's not that at the commission they became bad boys and they don't want they no longer pay for your open access costs. This is a private conversation with a person working at the commission. We do not tell researchers where to publish, so nothing is prohibited. As we saw, you have first option ORI, second option open access journal, third option any subscription-based journal. However, we do care where we spend taxpayer money. That's the point. So the Commission was immediately aware that the choice in Horizon 2020 to reimburse anything was a sort of backlash, okay? And publishers simply exploited this mandate in Horizon 2020 to be paid twice for the subscription and for the open options. And this idea of giving maximum 6 to 12 months, which originally was thought of as a way to oblige publishers to shorten the embargo period, it really turned out to be a further exploitation of the open access hybrid model by the publishers, because they simply told researchers, no, sorry, the embargo is longer, so you have to pay, okay? So that's the reason why the Commission no longer pays for hybrid. But they provide you Open Research Europe. So Open Research Europe is a publishing platform So it's one of the innovative ways of doing open science and open access, as we discussed in module 2. Several benefits for researchers, for research in itself, for society. All the more so because even in evaluation, and we said that research criteria are changing, there is no longer a proxy, there is no longer a box, a container, which is the journal by which you are evaluated, okay? The focus is on the content, is on the single article, is on your research in itself, okay? So there are several benefits of publishing in ORI. It's also, again, you can publish also your data. There is immediate access. The peer review process is very quick because they undergo both for traditional peer review and for open peer review. Okay, so it's very quick, and then it's sent to repositories and to indexes. They are also transparent on costs, so you see what you pay for. The cost for each article is 780, but you don't have to put it in the budget because it's on the commission, because they provided ORI via public procurement. So you don't have to put into the budget, but you see what you pay for. It's very important. So you don't pay for prestige like you do in normal subscription journal. You pay for services, as you can see here. Pre-publication check, peer review management, pre-publication check to publication, and so on. So this is something more about ORI. That was about publications, okay? Mandatory practices for publications. Now we have mandatory practices for data. The beneficiaries must manage the digital research data generated in the action responsibly in line with the FAIR principles, by taking all of the following actions. Establish a data management plan and regularly update it. As soon as possible and within the deadlines set out in the DMP, deposit the data in a trusted repository. If required in call condition, this repository must be federated in the EOSC in compliance with EOSC requirements. So again, let's discuss this wording. Data must be responsibly managed according to the FAIR principles. So again, refer to the third and fourth module of this open science course to know everything about the FAIR principles, the FAIR tools, the tools to assess the fairness of your data and your data set. Establish a data management plan. Again, at the end of module 4, we saw all the tools to establish a data management plan and regularly update it. So this is another novelty compared to Horizon 2020. In Horizon 2020, you had at least three versions of your DMP, initial one, midterm, and final. In Horizon Europe, you have to regularly update it because we will see the DMP is a living document, so it grows with your project. At the beginning, if you don't know or you can't estimate, for instance, the volume, the size of your data, you simply tell at this stage, we can't estimate the size of our data. And then as soon as you know it, you update the DMP. Again, this idea of trusted repository, and if required by specific calls, the repository should be federated into EOSC. Remember what a data management plan is. It's a formal document about how you manage your data, but it's also a way by which you ensure the community, the integrity of your data. It's a structured way of thinking of your data, a new way of thinking to your research from the perspective of your data, which is not always easy. It's a powerful tool for yourself and for the team, for the research team, because if you set clear rules at the beginning, then you will have less mistake during the ongoing of your research. As we were saying, it's a living document, so it grows with the project. It's also the right venue in which you justify if you keep your data closed, okay? Because the principle, again, is as open as possible, as close as necessary. If you have to keep your data closed, it's in the DMP that you state the reasons why. And it's also the right venue to estimate the costs, because if you generate terabyte of data, you for sure you will have costs, okay? Even Zenodo is for free, is powered by CERN in Geneva and OpenAir, but it's free until you reach 50 giga per record, okay? More than 50 giga you have to pay even in Zenodo. And let's be clear, this was an important message in our module on data management plan. The issue here is not learning how to draft a DMP. The issue is learning how to responsibly manage your data according to the FAIR principles. Again, refer to the recording of lesson 3 and 4. The DMP is just a declaration on how you manage your data. But if you are not aware on how to manage your data in the first place, the DMP is an empty document, okay? It's a waste of time for you and for the project officer. The DMP in Horizon Europe is due by month 6 and revised towards the end of a project lifetime, as you can see here. But you also have to, let's say, to give an outline, a blueprint of your DMP in one page. So in the proposal, you don't have to put the DMP. A DMP, of course, is longer. In the proposal, you have one page on research output management. And I underline research output management because it's not only about data. If your research is producing software or workflows or methodologies or videos or whatever, so it's not only data, it's research output management, okay? So you have to give an outline in one page in the proposal, and then your complete DMP is due as a deliverable of the project by month 6, okay? If the project is funded, okay? In the proposal, you still don't know if the project will be funded or not. The templates of Horizon Europe are available, of course, in DMP Online, in Argos, and in the Data Stewardship Wizard, which we saw last time as tools to draft your DMP. Again, the definition of trusted repository, we already saw it's the same that we saw for publication. Another requirement is to follow the principle as open as possible, as close as necessary, okay? So all the data by default must be open. All the more so because we have the directive, the Open Data Directive, and we are funded by public money. As you can see here, so the default should be set to open. You have to keep your data closed if opening is against the beneficiary legitimate interest, including regarding commercial exploitation, or is contrary to any other constraint, in particular competitive interest. So the principle is as open as possible, and the Creative Commons license here is the CC0, okay? It's also accepted the CC BY, but we saw during our 4th module that the right license for dataset is a CC0, okay? And then you have to provide information about all the tools and instruments to reuse or validate the data, okay? That's the reproducibility mandate. Here you find the reasons in the annotated model grant agreement. Again, data protection rules, privacy, confidentiality, trade secrets, union competitive interest, security rules, intellectual property rights, meaning patents, and so on. So these are the only valid reasons to keep your data closed. If not, everything should be open by default. Again, metadata should be machine actionable and fair to enable the harvesting by OpenAIRE, but that was the same also in Horizon 2020. So just to recap, open access to data, responsibly manage according to the FAIR principles, provide a data management plan and regularly update it, deposit in a trusted repository, and if explicitly requested, it might be federated into EOSC. The principle is as open as possible, as close as necessary, provide all the elements to validate and reuse the data, and as always, metadata always free and always with a CC0 license, okay? Again, all these practices are to be detailed also in the proposal. How the project will be compliant to these mandates, and there is a one page in the in the methodology excellence. There is one page in which you have to provide information about the mandatory practices to publications and to data and the recommended practices. Then mandatory practices on reproducibility. We basically already saw them in the wording of the data and text. You have to provide information on tools and materials useful to validate the published results, information on tools and materials useful to validate and reuse the data, and whenever possible, give access to all the above. For instance, if you need a specific software to read your data, then you have to give access also to the software. These were the mandatory practices for publication, data, and reproducibility practices. Now we are going to see the recommended practices. And basically, it's the open science rainbow, okay? So for every step of your research, you have one or more tools in order to open up this specific step. Again, you need to adapt the open science practices to your own research, okay? Maybe you can share, for instance, your Open Lab notebook, but maybe you don't generate code, so it's meaningless to say that you are going to share code in GitHub, okay? Simply maybe because you copy from your colleague who are generating software. So adapt all the practices that you can, and all the practices I would say that are suitable and meaningful for your project, and define them in this page in the proposal. You have the guide, the program guide, like 10 pages on open science practices, like open access, bearing in mind that open access is mandated for publication, but it's recommended for anything else. So whenever you open something beside publications, state it in the proposal, okay? Then you have pre-registration, preprints, whatever you can think of, and whatever you can think you can see in the rainbow of open science practices. Reproducibility practices, don't forget the Turing way, which is the perfect hand way, and you can also refer to the Turing way in your proposal, saying we are, let's say, we are designing our research according to the suggestion of the Turing way, being open by design, and something like this. You have open peer review as one of the recommended practices, and we already mentioned it. If you plan to publish in ORI, Open Research Europe, open peer review is given by default, okay? But as you can see in the program guide, anytime it is possible, you are invited to prefer open peer review. And we discussed during the second module why open peer review is so important and why reviews should be always open. Citizen science. Citizen science is one, I would say, of the recommended practices which are more positively evaluated, okay? any practice of co-design, co-creation, co-assessment is highly positively evaluated. In the Open Science module, we saw this co-creation menu. So more than, I would say, 30 different co-creation activities. There might be suitable for your research, there might not be suitable. It's up to you to adapt the most suitable co-creation action to your kind of research. Then, of course, on responsible research and innovation, you have the toolkit, and you have in the program guide, you have a lot of tools again. So, recap on recommended practices in the methodology section. So, the total is 15 pages. You have 1 page on open science to show the Commission how you will comply to mandatory practices. For instance, are you publishing in ORE? Are you depositing in Zenodo? Are you publishing in an open access journal? And how you will adapt recommended practices. Are you going to use and to go for open peer review whenever it's possible? Are you co-creating your research with for instance, with a citizen association? Are you going to share your research as early as possible as preprint? Are you pre-registering your experiment? You have to detail in 1 page in the methodology section, okay? Just a focus on fair data management. Again, in the program guide, you have all the guidance, more than 5 pages on research data management. Beware of costs, okay? Again, in the project proposal, cost should be detailed, because if not, you are not reimbursed, okay? And again, a research output fair management is mandated, okay? It's mandated, and it's recommended for all the other outputs which are not data. So address both in your proposal, because in the methodology, you have another page. So 1 page is on open science mandatory and recommended, and 1 page is on data and output management. It's a sort of, outline of your data management plan. So you have to refer, it's a schema, okay? It's not the data management plan, because it's just 1 page in which you have to put the type of data, the identifiers you are going to use, the access policy. So if you are going open or if you are going closed, and why, because you have to justify if you are going closed. If there are an embargo period on data is suitable, so it's allowed. Where to find the data, the standard and the ontologies you are using, the documentation, and all you need to validate and reuse your data, the license for reuse, the preservation, so where are you going to preserve your data, and of course, all the related costs. So you have 1 page on open science, mandatory and recommended, and 1 more page on data and output management out of the total 15 pages of the methodology section in your proposal, okay? So here on the data, you simply have to give a hint on how you are going to deal with your data in a fair way. Just to be practical, open science in the proposal, in part A, in the list of achievements, you will put 5 achievements, which are not publication only, can be a data set, can be a lesson, can be a project, whatever. Publications, as you can see here, in particular journal articles, are expected to be open access. Does it mean that I can include only publications if I published in an open access journal? Of course, no, because it's ex post, okay? So you couldn't be aware in 2018, for instance, that you should have proposed this achievement for Horizon Europe. But open access does not mean only publishing, means also depositing, okay? So you take your 2018 publication, which got 2,000 citations and was published in Nature, You take the accepted version of this paper, you deposit in your institutional repository or in Zenodo, and it's perfectly open, okay? So that's how you can get open access to previous publications, okay? The principle should always be as open as possible, even for datasets, okay? And every achievement is supposed to have a digital object identifier, okay? So particularly dataset, but any achievement should have a DOI. And even you as a researcher should have your ORCID ID. So that's part A of the proposal. In part A, if one of your achievement, one or more, is a publication, as we said, if you did not publish in an open access journal, simply deposit it. Beware that in part A, you have to provide the achievement and a short description of the impact, okay, of this achievement, bearing in mind that you don't have to mention the impact factor, okay? Impact factor is not considered in evaluating the impact of your achievement. That's very important. Don't put the impact factor. I would be happy to say that it will result in a negative judgment if the project officer is a strong project officer. But anyway, don't mention the impact factor because it's not considered, as you can see in the program guide, okay? So impact is meant to be real impact on society, real impact on daily life. Then you have in part B, these 2 pages we already referred to. So in the excellence part, you have point 1, 2, the first bullet point, describe how appropriate open science practices are implemented as an integral part of the proposed methodology. Show how the choice of practices and their implementation are adapted to the nature of your work, okay? That's why you can't copy paste. It's clear, the program guide is clear. You have to adapt the open science practices, and rightly so, because it's a methodology. It's not something void, okay? It's something that you have to embed in your research, and your research should be open by design. That's why the Turing way it's so important. In the proposal, if you believe that none of these practices are appropriate for your project, please provide a justification, okay? And you have 1 page. In this page, you have to put mandatory practices, recommended practices, provide a justification if you want to keep them close, okay? And that's 1 page. Then you have another page, because you see it's another bullet point, always under the methodology 1.2 point, which accounts for 15 pages in total. You have another point, research data management and management of other research outputs, okay? Again, 1 page. If the project is selected, bearing in mind that you are evaluated also on what you are writing in this page, then you will have to provide the full DMP by month 6, okay? Here, you simply have to give a hint on how you are going to deal with your data. And we are, again, in part B, methodology 1.2. Again, a reminder, you have to put here in the proposal also curation and storage or preservation costs. Then in part B, point 2, impact, you have to provide the schema of your dissemination and communication plan, which again, if the project is selected, is due by month 6. And of course, open science is a maximizer of the impact, okay? So your dissemination and communication plan should be coherent to what you said in point 1.2, okay? 1.2. I mean, you can't say in the methodology, we are keeping everything close, and then here in the communication plan saying, okay, we are disseminating via preprints as early as possible, okay? The two parts of the proposal should be coherent, of course. And the more open science tool you use, the more your dissemination plan will be positively evaluated, okay? You are requested to be schematic in part B, as you can see here, and you are also requesting to identify the target, okay, of your dissemination, let's say, choice, okay? Just a reminder here, if you are planning to patent your research, then your first step should be patenting the algorithmic model, as you can see in the example here. So first you patent, then you disseminate. And when you disseminate, if you publish, your publication must be open in the three options that we saw before, and that you have to detail in the proposal, in the page about open science. Again, this is another page about patents and open science, and you can, as you can see here, and there is also another policy paper on the balance you need to find between protecting your right and open science. There is no winner. You need to find a balance, of course. When you draft your dissemination plan, remind that open science is part of the scientific impact. You know that another novelty in Horizon Europe are the impact pathways. And if you look at the economic impact, you will see that one of the impact is foster all forms of innovation. If you look at scientific impact, promote scientific excellence, support the creation and diffusion of high quality knowledge, okay? And if you look at the societal impact, you will see mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals, and we discussed them, in the open science module, because open science is an accelerator for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. They are at the foundation of all the UNESCO and the United Nations policies on science. Again, the key impact pathways, one of the indicators at the end of Horizon Europe will be fostering diffusion of knowledge and open science. So bear it in mind when you draft your dissemination plan. In the program guide, again, a clarification about this, I would say, pretended fight between dissemination and exploitation or protection of your results, okay? Bearing in mind that dissemination and exploitation are not the same, like communication is again another concept. But here you have all the, I would say, inputs on how to balance exploitation and open science, bearing in mind that exploitation can also be non-commercial, okay? This is the annotated model grant agreement. Exploitation can also be non-commercial. In Horizon Europe, there is also another novelty, which is the Horizon Results Platform. So if after 1 year from the end of your project, you didn't exploit the project, and by exploitation, we mean also non-commercial exploitation, then you have to, as you can see here, beneficiaries must use the Horizon Results Platform for making their exploitable results visible, okay? So this is another platform provided by the European Commission. The last point in which open science is relevant in the proposal is part 3, the technical description of your proposal, 3.2, capacity of the participants and consortium as a whole. And here in the description of the consortium, you have also to show the Commission how the partners are skilled in open science practices. So that showing basically that they are going to implement the open science choices because they already did it before. They are skilled in doing open science, okay? If you are planning to be funded or to apply to ERC, to the European Research Council, and not directly in Horizon Europe, basically the principles are the same, okay? Because they firmly believe in open science, and even in ERC, you have the right retention strategy, okay? So you have to give immediate access. So that was all for Horizon Europe, or better, Open Science in Horizon Europe. I stop sharing and I'm going to check if there are questions. In the chat, no question. Do you have any question, any doubt? Was it clear that we have 3 options and it's not that you have to publish in an open access journal? Because I hope so. Okay, I see Gabriela saying yes. Okay, I hope it was clear. Okay, I give you a few seconds if you have any. Okay, people is saying it was clear. And thank you. No, thanking me for the session. So I thank you for your attention. Okay, and if you want to go over the slides again, they are available on Zenodo. Gabriela already put the link in the chat. So thank you for attending these sessions on open science. If you attended only the lesson of today, please refer to the previous recording, because I would say that the funny part was on the 4 previous lessons. Today it was just the boring, the rules part, which is always boring. And again, thank you. All the slides are there. The recordings of the previous version of the previous lessons are there. And I will put, of course, also the recording of the session of today as soon as Claudio will put it on the UNITA website. Thank Claudio for the technical support. Thank Gabriela for any kind of support. And thank you for the attention, and see you maybe next time in the next future for another UNITA lesson. Bye-bye. Thank you.